June 6th meeting of the Water Quality Management Committee will come to order. First item on the agenda is discussion and vote on Oyster Pond Watershed Letter. By way of background for our nationwide television audience, we should say this: Oyster Pond is having its own separate CWMP, which is its own separate evaluation and recommendation for treatment. The initiation of this came from one of our members, Steve Layton. And the basic premise was he wants to reach out to all the property owners who are in the Oyster Pond watershed and invite them to join a sort of a common electronic community so that they can follow the progress of the work in Oyster Pond. Is that fair?
That's absolutely perfect introduction. And you've all seen the letter, and the only fine-tuning, I mean, no one has objected to the bulk of it. It's just the second half of the second paragraph. There was some disagreement on how bland versus how alarmist it should be. The idea being that if it's too bland, people may throw it in the trash can. If it's too alarmist, they may cause too much of an alarm. But we want to be realistic and say something that causes them to think they ought to pay attention. And I would be happy. There's one page of letter and there's one page of some suggestions. Thank you very much to Ron and Eric and Wynn for those. Personally, I would vote for either the letter the way it stands, or I'd be willing to have option A or B put in there for the last two lines. But I want to hear other people's opinion.
Sure. Well, we all exercised our right to edit for 4 hours at the last meeting, so we'll hopefully not take 4 hours at this one. But so the issue before us is the last two lines of Steve's draft letter in the second paragraph. He's got his own recommendation, which is the letter as it stands, or his option A or option B. We have a bunch of other options following that have come from different sources. So do we have any discussion?
I have a comment if no one else does. I think option B, to imply that if they get involved, they'll improve it is, it's, I don't know what the concept was, but, let your voice be heard or something like that.
Yeah, I just wanted to keep it concrete. I didn't want to emphasize words like CWMP that people outside this committee might have no idea.
You could just say, please pay attention now so you'll be informed. They don't have to approve it.
All right, well, let's keep the conversation moving along here. Matt, then Ron.
Yeah, I think that does make sense. You don't want to give people the impression that they're going to be in agreement with it when it comes out. I mean, even if they participate, they may not be totally happy with it. But
fair enough. So that's two votes against option B.
I'd like to suggest option C because I think it goes to the heart of the issue. Your participation now will assure the best possible outcome for the Oyster Pond neighborhood. And that's what public involvement is. Everybody gets a chance to weigh in and to convince your neighbors and so on. And out of that process comes the best possible outcome. So
that's an optimistic part.
Right. Well, and I'm an optimistic person. So I would just take the second paragraph and that last sentence, which is a really long sentence, just put a period after opportunity for us to listen to your comments and ideas, period. Your participation now will help assure the best possible outcome for the Oyster Pond neighborhood.
Right.
That's my vote.
Wynn, any observations or the discussion?
I was the one who suggested E, and I think that probably C is as good as E or better.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see Jerry's point in B.
Notice that in the existing letter, we're mentioning work on your property, fees you pay to the town, and increase in your property value. And those are actual concrete things that people can understand even if they know nothing about this process. And you might think that maybe they're too alarmist, but they are correct. We left out all the incorrect things that were there before, like taxes and so on.
Well, I agree with what you say. It's a little more alarmist than I would choose. I mean, we've talked about this during the week
Right.
here, and I think that I'd go along with C or E if it came to that. Can I have a motion from anybody about anything?
Well, I'll make mine as a motion. Period after the word ideas, and then insert sentence C.
Second. Okay, moved and seconded to go with C.
Period after the word
Yeah,
ideas,
right.
and then insert sentence C in place of the information.
Which paragraph is that?
This is
Second
Second
paragraph.
paragraph, and it's the very long sentence at the end
The
of that.
last two lines,
Two
Okay,
lines.
I see.
Right,
plus the word particularly.
right.
Right. Okay, moved and seconded to adopt the motion as presented here, which substance of which is
We'll
item
have
C.
some discussion.
Oh, absolutely.
I kind of like the sentence that's there now. I think it's, you really have to, I mean, for people to be alarmed by something they read, it has to be pretty strong language, and I don't think this is strong. I think it's factual. It's my opinion.
Okay.
I agree with Matt.
All right. Any further discussion? Okay, so the motion before us is on item C with the period, as Virginia pointed out, the period after
Ideas.
ideas, and then a new sentence, item C. Okay, all in favor of that motion? Signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye.
All right.
All opposed?
Okay, let's see.
Opposed?
Okay, the C's have it. This is, by the way, a really smart idea. And this is sort of our prototype watershed to try it out on. It's a small enough watershed, and it's early enough in the planning stage. But the idea of having everybody who's a property owner invited to be part of it from the very beginning is a really good idea. And we'll find if it works.
Mhm.
it's about 200,
How many minutes did that?
200 homes.
Not bad.
Do you want, I can give, in another 2 minutes or less, I can give you an update on the Oyster Pond CWMP. if
Please
you
do.
want that.
Sure.
This is basically an email that Ed Leonard, Wright Pierce, sent me. And by the way, Rob Steen is no longer with Wright Pierce, so that, which is too bad.
Too bad.
And he's now the Assistant Director of DPW for Barnstable. They completed the storm drain assessment with the town engineering department. They found no evidence of illicit connections. They found substantially more storm drain infrastructure than that shown in the town GIS. They've coordinated with the GIS department, the wastewater department, and SIA on water use and build-out analysis. And the last step is to meet with the town planner, the wastewater department, and SIA to finalize build-out. And this meeting was requested by the wastewater department. I guess, Jerry.
Just an update.
Yeah.
Brian Curry has reviewed both. I hear you had some comments on the wastewater, or the water use. That was more, try to explain, what water use was and things like that. I think it was informative, but not necessarily substantive. For instance, he says, why don't we use median value? Well, the profession uses average flow. So when you go from water use to wastewater use, it's the average daily flow. But I mean, if he picked it up, I think, a lot of other people, so he's going to massage those words. Probably the more interesting one was the build-out. They like to discuss a theoretical build-out and a practical build-out. It was Brian Kerry's professional opinion that the theoretical build-out that's provided by the Cape Cod Commission is far too conservative. It calls for almost overgrowth because it just assumes, and I don't know how many parcels it is, maybe it's the theory of the term, you will build out on every parcel in accordance with zoning and bylaw. He liked the idea of the practical build-out, and and there's a number of ways you could do it. Traditionally, our engineers give a practical build-out based on some professional assumptions. So those two, there were two separate documents, and they're essentially now complete. Wright Pierce is going to take Brian Kerry's comments and fold it into one memo or two memo. My suggestion was that these are precursors to the water use, and by separating them, I don't know if they get more attention or they're not as well understood. By linking them together eventually as one document, which I think they will be, the information will flow and you'll understand you understand the document better. There was a discrepancy between his flow analysis and the MEP flow analysis, and it essentially had to do on how the GIS department linked water account units and parcels. Both are correct. We had to clarify why there's a difference. For instance, tree chops was listed as one unit, where it's probably X number of condos. And it's just how the GIS links things and what parcels you use. The flow is the same, but when you start tweaking it by dividing by the number of residential units, you can get skewed information.
And in continuing, they completed a review of health department files to assess Title V inspection records, and the health agent is expected to be providing them with a list of Title V variances in the near term. They've received data from Barnstable County on the location of all IA systems in the watershed, and there were none in Salt Pond. And I also want to thank Sia for the excellent work she did in setting up the constant contact system, which is now live on our website. So as we speak, random people in Hong Kong could be entering their name and address on our website so they could receive updates on Oyster Pond. We don't think that's likely, but it's theoretically possible.
I hope not too many of them will. All right, that's terrific. And this is a prototype, because we've got more than half a dozen more estuaries coming after our current task is completed, and by then the Oyster Pond model will be the model.
Good.
Okay, number 2, report of the wastewater superintendent re-SMAS contract.
Best mass contract for synthesis and analysis was signed today by University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth.
Okay, we should explain for our nationwide television audience or international audience that SMAS is the University of Massachusetts at Dartmouth. They have this entity that it deals with marine studies, and that entity has been doing all of the data collection and monitoring in the affected area that we're talking about for the last 7 or 8 or 10 years. And part of our task is to do more of the same for the next 3 years, and that's what this contract is largely about.
Well, the initial part of the contract is to synthesize and analysis
But the earlier stuff.
of the earliest stuff. We have a second contract of doing additional monitoring that SMAS worked with members of this committee. We had additions to it put in by Concom and even in ourselves when we started looking at what the intent was. That went out to public notice on Tuesday of this week. Public comments or questions are due to me Thursday. I send out final response to comments on Friday, clarifications, and we open bids on Tuesday the following week. It's a 7-day bid period. It's quick, needs to be quick because we theoretically, we have to, according to the permit condition, have monitoring underway before oysters go in. SMAS, like any other organization, cannot proceed ahead without a signed contract, where other organizations can proceed ahead with a notice of award that you were selected, subject to a lot of other things, and commonly known as you proceed at your own risk. The risk is small, but they have their administrative procedures, so I don't think they will be participating and responding.
Okay. Which segues us into the next item, which is the Little Pond Aquaculture Project update from Sia, Ron, and Steve Rafferty not being here. It's you two.
I just had
Sure.
a question, Jerry. When will they start then? Are they gonna start next week? Or are they all, like last year they did it anyway, but are they starting next week or do we know?
They will start as soon as we review the RFPs. We choose the responsive bidder. We tell Julian that this is a responsive bidder, and he allows me to issue a notice of award.
Okay, do we have a time, like, you wonder what,
I'm hoping if there's no
a week?
issues,
A week? 2 weeks?
maybe by the end of the week, we could give them a notice. I mean, we'll go
Next
open on
week.
Tuesday.
Next week.
Yeah,
Okay, I see.
open on Tuesday. I think the RFPs are gonna be pretty brief and concise, you know.
Okay.
Because you need this soon for this
Well,
project.
yeah, the babies are growing.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
They're gonna wanna stretch their legs pretty
They
soon.
need a sitter.
So yeah, by the end of this week, maybe next week, and I've lost track of when they absolutely have to go in the water. I've lost track on what's the difference if they're in the water for a week, and then we get sampling. That's the Concom's call. We'll just tell them the conditions, what we try to meet, and what we actually did meet.
Okay.
I think we have till the end of June on
Yeah, no, yeah, we have, right. So probably a bit more, as you say, but Concom really wanted something happening
the,
before.
beforehand, and that's the goal we're striving.
That's what-
Yes.
Yes.
Right,
You're
So,
absolutely-
before they're going.
Yeah, and we have an upweller, so it's, okay, thanks.
Any further discussion on item 2? Let's go to 3.
Okay.
Little Pond Aquaculture, Sia and Ron.
I don't know, if you want to
You can start.
Okay, great. There've been, actually, I'd just like to praise Sia again in this meeting. It's amazing how many details have to go into setting everything up and the procedures, and there's also been a lot of cooperation from a lot of folks in town, volunteers, and who've jumped in at times on getting things started. So the procurement is moving. It's well advanced at this point with regard to the start of the process. The materials for the bags are here, and the bags are being assembled. And you're all welcome to join the assembly teams. It's fun to stand there, and so they've got it all set up. It's amazing. I spent a couple hours there today.
Yeah, when and
Where,
where?
who's
Oh, it's
they?
near the, Dan Pugar is basically the manager of he was hired as the manager of the Little Pond project. He's working with Matt Weeks, who's of course under Chuck and Greg. And then they've also hired a worker, part-time, Anthony Gabriel, so that's basically 2 people on the team, dedicated team, and then other support from others. And then they've been recruiting, like Christos Karplis was out there for the last couple of days, assembling bags and
No, but
doing
where?
all kinds of things. It's right beside the harbor master's office, and there's a shed there with stuff. Okay, and you can kind of see where the stuff is, but you'll see the bags because the mound is rising. I think they're probably up to almost 500 already assembled, so they're very visible. And we're beginning to get more and more put together. So all of the details of all the parts and pieces and getting a good price to see again has gotten all that together, and then she's got some of us is running and grabbing, picking up stuff. So on Monday, for myself, my involvement then was to drive to Chatham to pick up some of the gear that he had all set up. They were ready for me. It was all done. And then I drove to Dennis to Aquaculture Research Corporation and picked up the babies, basically the oyster spat. Really, well, they're bigger than spat, but they're small oysters. I mean, they look literally like sand. You hold them in your hand, you'd think they were sand. And so I picked up 1.25 million oysters for.
Really expensive sand.
Yeah.
Now, did you count every one of them?
No,
How do you know we got $1.25 million?
I counted everyone and named everyone. You know, we took a circuitous route coming back, but there are 1.25 million for the demonstration project, and then there were 50,000 for the town, and another 1.5 million quahog seed. And the quahogs were really robust and big. I mean, there were like 10 bags of those, and the oysters came in 2 little bags. You know? So they're, you know, and they are pricey, but but anyway, they're growing. We don't have to feed them, but we do have we can give the team, give the committee a tour, you know, quickly. Julian was there today with Chuck and Greg, and got a basic lay of the land, and he went over to McDougall's to see the operating upweller there. McDougall's has been great because they give the space, they provide electricity, and if anything breaks, they replace it.
Wow.
So they're really very, very supportive of the town shellfish program. Not just this, but this has been going on for years there. And so we plan now, it'll take about probably to the end of the month before they're almost a ½ inch in size, at which point they would then go into the bags, basically just like our survival test last summer, and will be put out into Little Pond in the 2-acre area off of Narragansett Street. So, and that'll be the start in small mesh bags, and then as they grow, after a few weeks, they will then be moved to larger mesh bags. And then the smaller mesh bags will be available for the next batch, which is due at the end of this month, roughly. And then, so we'll be going through the process. Well, I mean, the bags won't be needed at that moment, but they will be going into the upweller then, and then they'll be available later. So we'll have to see how by the end of July, they should be, the first batch should be, the first batch will be in the beginning of July, second batch will be in by the end of July. And then, so anyway, but that's where it stands right now, and as far as that goes, so the basic permitting is in place. DMF goes through its motions, but basically the green light has been given. And I think that we're in good shape, and if the monitoring gets started, then we got the show on the road, a full comprehensive program, basically running. Now, when will the you term high fidelity units be available to be?
They are scheduled to go in per the RFP and the proposal, and working with conservation July 1st to August 31st. Those are the 2 months of,
Okay.
so, and beginning of July.
Okay, so those are, what I mean by high fidelity, we've got these buoys that will be monitoring buoys. They'll be doing monitoring 24 hours a day about, 4 variables, 4 parameters.
Yeah.
Basically temperature, dissolved oxygen, pH,
Salinity?
Salinity.
and, yeah.
Turbidity. I think there's a chlorophyll.
Chlorophyll.
We're doing the fluorescence chlorophyll.
Okay, and
So 5.
So that'll be going on, and in addition to the program that the SMS will be doing. So it's everything is coming into place just in time so far. So
That's terrific.
yeah, but I just I mean, like the amount of legwork that goes into something like this, and getting all these details, finding where things are, getting good prices, and everything like this is really a lot of effort. And so I've been honored to come in at times to do a few things. So
Well, it sounds
Wonderful.
like more than a
Thank
few
you.
things, and we appreciate the time and the energy.
Yeah.
You're traipsing all over the Cape to do this.
well, it wasn't. Well, it was Monday. It was pouring rain. I almost felt like I needed an amphibious vehicle. Some of these, the roads don't drain that quickly. And the ARC is out at the end of. It's in Dennis, right on Cape Cod Bay, and the road is their drive-in is And better, yeah,
Better when it's
in
not
dry
raining.
weather. Better in dry weather, but, you know, it was okay. We didn't, you know,
Yeah.
we made it through, but it was very nice going out. And they were ready for us, more or less on time. You know, I mean,
Great.
we were a little late, they were a little bit late, so it all fit together.
Great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I just have a technical question. All kidding aside, obviously you don't count them individually, but how do you measure them? Is it by weight or volume? Or?
Volume. They do it. They do a test. They take basically they do counts. We do cross-check counts, but you just count
Because you
a
want to
certain
know
volume.
in some sense later
Yeah.
on when they've grown up what you
Oh
really
yeah,
did
yeah. No,
start
well,
with.
yeah. As things progress, we'll be doing more and more of that. But it'll be done basically volumetrically. In other words, a cup will sort of be. I mean, it's not exact, but the thing
Right.
is, a cup will be used, and maybe there's 1,000, or maybe there, let's say 100 per cup, or whatever size cup it is that would go into the, and then you just dole them out that way, and that's how it goes. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions?
Just a couple of updates on the volunteers. The way we're working the volunteers is from 8 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, they're assembling bags. We can use one person, we can use up to 5 people. The right thing to do would be to contact me. I'm just making sure we don't get too big a crowd at any one time. We've had a wonderful turnout. People who have been involved with the Water Quality Committee, Steve Fassett, for example, some other neighbors have been out there. Ron was there assembling bags. We got a couple of other people coming, and the bags, we have got 500 bags assembled. Total, we need 3,250 bags assembled.
Okay.
But the first batch of the 4 millimeter bags, which is what we need for the first installation, are just about done. So that's really encouraging. But anybody from 8 to 4, and they're doing it where the town boat landing is. There's the shed right there at the boat landing. From 8 to 4, 2-hour increments, 1-hour increment, whatever time anybody has. If they were to call me, just to let me know.
Is there, since you're, my good guess is that you're going to get an invitation published in the Enterprise. Is there a lower age limit?
People should contact me, and I will tell them what the policy is from personnel on our junior volunteers. We're getting clarification from personnel on junior volunteers.
There's no time schedule for the weekends.
No, not on the weekends, just during the week. And then I just wanted to update on the budget. I thought, since we have a,
Yeah, just one comment on this too is that they're very. I was trained very quickly on how to do it, so it was it comes pretty easily. So it isn't real complicated, and the tools, everything are there,
yeah.
and it's very well set up.
Great. When?
I think, have everybody noticed that probably on Friday evening, Saturday morning, we may have 1.5 inches, 2 inches, 2.5 inches of rain. So we could keep that in mind if that affects the
We
program.
have a gazebo cover
Oh, great.
that I originally got for the project to keep the sun from beating down on everybody, but it has turned into a wonderful rain
Good.
rain cover. On Monday, they worked because we had this gazebo that was supposed to keep them from getting too hot. so it was a covered space. And just quickly to go over the budget, the original budget had $54,000, $54,708 for equipment. We made an order for the bags, floats, and ties that was $47,000. We got the zip ties, the long line clips. We needed 19,500 zip ties, just to give you a sense, because there are 6 ties per bag and there are 3,000 bags. So these became small items with a big price tag at the end, so it was quite advantageous to try to get a good price per unit, and we did. So we got zip ties, the long line clips, we got the hog clips that tie it, pretty much everything we need, and we still have $3,400 in the equipment budget. So we're under budget. We still have to buy a couple of things, but I think we've got a little bit of headroom, so we're doing well.
Great.
Yes.
Great.
And if anybody wants a copy of the actual budget breakdown, I'm happy to provide it.
I'm impressed, really, because this was the most difficult one to get up and running. And I really wondered at times if we were going to get it up and running in time for this year. But
I think we had great people. I think it really is. It's evident as you touched anywhere in the project.
Yeah.
They're very enthusiastic and serious and fun
Great,
at the same time.
great. All right, any further comments or questions on the Little Pond Aquaculture Project? If not, next one is report on the status of tertiarily treated effluent disposal option, basically the Site 7 update, since we haven't talked about that for several meetings. CWMPs and such getting in the way. Virginia, you've been involved in.
Well, we've been tracking it because it is obviously a key component to the whole wastewater picture for Little Pond. And so I'm going to comment on several things that are in progress. The concern of the residents around Crocker Pond was whether phosphorus would get into their pond. And so we have asked for soil tests both at Site 7 and downstream, sort of closer to Crocker Pond, but clearly in the pathway from Site 7 to Crocker Pond, to test the character of the soils. Normally, phosphorus under aerobic conditions simply sticks to the particles, and it does not travel and would not get into the pond. Those soil samples, well, first the well that is near Crocker Pond had to be drilled, and it's on the west side of Route 28A. So that drilling was done, the soil samples were taken, a monitoring well was installed there that is flush with the pavement of the street. And we are waiting for the results from the lab on the soil samples from that well and from Site 7 itself. Secondly, we are continuing to do particle tracking. There was originally a concern, or at least in the comments, if you may remember, some people felt that discharge to Site 7 would go into West Falmouth Harbor. And we have had that modeling done to verify that no, it does not, that it discharges directly to Vineyard Sound, to Buzzards Bay. And then there was a question of to what degree is Herring River, also sometimes called Herring Brook, involved. This is the stream that comes out of Wing Pond and flows down and sort of divides Old Silver Beach, the residential side, from the public side. So there is monitoring, particle tracking being done for that. And then there is monitoring being done of Herring Brook, Herring River itself. The Buzzards Bay Coalition has been collecting data on Herring River for several years, and they have asked the state to list it as a water body that should have further evaluation. And that list has a technical number of 303D, which is sort of a new number for me. So Herring Brook has been listed on as a water feature of the town, a coastal river that will need monitoring. They have been collecting all of their samples right at the bridge, whereas the stream goes, as I said, all the way up inland and finally all the way to Wing Pond. So we're considering having a second point for monitoring. Matt?
I think the 303D list those are waters that are impacted.
Impacted, that's right.
Impaired, right.
Impaired, right.
They're claiming that this.
So Herring Brook is an impaired body of water.
At this point, based on the data they have collected at the bridge, we have at the same time learned that there was a cesspool at the residential side of Herring Brook,
Old Silver Beach.
on
The
Old
parking
Silver Beach,
beach, yeah.
at Old Silver Beach on the residential side, about 200 feet from the bridge. So it is conceivable that there may be a complication, or that the measuring being taken may be seeing something that's not typical of the watershed. So at this point, that's under consideration. Their Buzzards Bay Coalition does its monitoring every season, and we have suggested that they do a second monitoring site that is farther upstream. So that's sort of status of elements related to Site 7.
Now, there's another piece of this, which is that we've been talking to the consultant about in-plant, sort of polishing, I guess is the phrase, but things that could be done at the plant that would either reduce nitrogen or reduce phosphorus if necessary, other than what's being done now. Right now, what's being done brings the nitrogen down to 3 or less, but there are other ways, at least conceptually, to reduce it beyond that. And NOC has been looking at a bunch of those, and maybe you'd want to give a thumbnail sketch of any of that.
Sure. I think in working very closely with GHD, who are the sort of wastewater consultants, we've been looking at just ways to reduce nitrogen using just a variety of different technologies, hoping to see if there are what I would call biological solutions, constructed wetlands types of solutions, or even filtering and being able to sequester in a centralized way nutrients that are coming out of the effluent. And so there's a variety of possibilities, but it's pretty early stage, I would say, right now. At least conceptually, there are absolutely ways to reduce nitrogen and phosphorus. The question is what works, what can get permitted, would it work in our particular circumstance? So it's exciting to think about, but it's early stage right now.
Comment, question, Steve?
Virginia, who could I talk to find out more about this phosphorus going into the ground and just sticking to the particles? You can't keep something like that up forever,
Well,
or else you have some kind of fantastic phosphorus mine.
who can you talk to?
We'll have a report
I can
soon.
answer that, actually. No, I can, George Heufelder really understands all the different options, basically. I mean, outside of the plant, okay, in terms of soil and this kind of thing. He was a bit concerned when I spoke with him about it, about the level, because the average for the data that I got from Jerry's department was 2.4 milligrams per liter on average, okay, phosphorus coming out. And so he was a bit concerned. He didn't realize it was that high. But there are different types of soils that can be actually, there's stuff like green sand. There's all these different things that can be applied at the effluent point or somewhere. Or there may be, as from the soil samples, they may find that there's considerable adsorbing type things that will grab that, that will grab it. But it's uncertain. And the Cape, it's very highly variable. Some places are better than others. And so there may be something maybe coming up in that. There may be something else in the plant that Jerry would know that can be done to work on that aspect. But George, really, if you want to give him a call, he's quite happy to elaborate
that's a
on.
good
I
local
think it was a
resource.
half a dozen things he mentioned to me or something approaching that. But there were not. There are ways. Again, it gets into cost, and it gets to management side of things and how it's done, because it's not commonly done, I guess, at least in Falmouth, and how to work with that. So it's, but there are methods, and I don't,
I'm just going to, Steve, we all impose on George, and he gives freely of his time, and I know you're a scientist. If you Google phosphorus attenuation through the soil, you'll have a lot of night reading. It's
So much more fun to call George.
Well, no, I'm just saying that, if you read it, then you call them up, you might be out there sometimes. We are doing a study, so we're going to have site-specific information back soon, I hope.
Right.
The other thing is we haven't even started, but, there's some concern, well, maybe we have a high user of phosphorus in our system that we haven't identified.
high.
Someone that discharges a high amount of phosphorus in their wastewater.
Oh,
Oh, okay. I don't know. Yeah, that's something. That'll be a good bit of sleuthing. Figure that one out.
Take samples at a half a dozen manholes.
But
Figure it out.
I did have a few comments on your presentation, Virginia. One is, but thank you very much. It's very, very good to see that this is progressing. Another concern was not just phosphorus, but also nitrogen, and the nitrogen levels also in Crocker Pond, that the PALS studies have shown that that it's near the limit, basically, according to the reporting that I've seen. So that should be looked at as well.
You're talking about what's called the trophic level of the pond, the amount of biological activity in it now?
Right,
Is that what
yeah,
you're
well,
referring to?
that plus the limits of what's coming in because of the watershed there and everything else from the highway or whatever, in terms of coming in.
There is a concern about the highway, which probably I should have mentioned. It turns out there is a major drainage shed that has a huge pipe that goes right down and directly discharges to Crocker Pond. It's built a little delta in front of it, so it's actually dry land, but it flow and they have an easement. It shows on the town records. They have an easement that includes part of the pond. I learned from the Bourne Farm executive director that because this part of the pond belongs to Bourne's Farm, they're very concerned about that direct discharge. And so the state is revising the intersection of Thomas Landers Road and Route 28A. It has something to do with signals and so on. And so Bourne's Farm has put this discharge onto that list of things that the state has to look at. So that would be something that would improve the health of the pond if they change it so it's not a direct discharge.
Yeah.
Right, but the thing is, they may not change that. They may say, okay, that's the limit, and therefore we have to know, there may be limits just how the trade-off
Or there may be
works.
trade-offs.
Yeah, maybe trade-offs.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's another piece of new
Right.
information.
Could we jump back to Matt? He was
I just
come
want to
back
point
you.
out that that's part of their best management practices, Mass Highways. They've got to address that. If they do anything in there, the town should insist that they do.
I completely agree.
And your legislative delegation should be
Weigh in.
Right.
weighing in on that. Right.
Okay,
Absolutely.
good
Yeah.
point.
Right.
Okay. The other thing is that in addition to Herring Brook, there was discussion about Mashapaquet Creek.
Mashapaquet, yes.
Mashapaquet Creek, which goes, that's the proper way to say it, I guess.
The French version.
Okay, Mashapaquet Creek. That's better, at least I know how to say it now. But I've only read about it, but it also moves toward West Falmouth Harbor, so there were concerns about the increased groundwater flows that would be coming in and how that might then be directed. So you didn't mention that in your discussion, so I just wonder if that's...
Ultimately, there's going to be a report that will
Yeah.
lay out the flow, the particles, and so on. It was alleged, I have to say, that Mashapaquet Creek would be affected by Site 7, but the at least preliminary particle tracking shows clear difference.
Okay, well, I mean, if the studies show that
Yeah.
and they're properly reviewed, that's great.
Yeah.
One other thing too about the ways to reduce N. I mean, Jerry, is there any chance of bringing back the existing, which you can see from Google Earth, spray irrigation area? I mean, that might be. I never understood. I never really had a clear explanation why that was suspended. Basically,
The
maybe
state
it wasn't
didn't
working.
give, the state didn't give us the attenuation credit for nitrogen. So it was, to operate it was not worthwhile, and we did operate it for a while. You could say it was the first demonstration project. You might probably know more, you were probably commissioner back then.
I'll add two things. One is that part of the reason there's been no discussion of the spray irrigation is because that's within the West Falmouth watershed.
That's
And
another good point.
so the discussion all the way along and the assurances to West Falmouth were, if there's any additional discharge from treated effluent at the plant, it will be outside your watershed. So that's the first
Yeah,
reason it hasn't
okay.
come up. The second, and this is just more my personal observations, the original plant did not adequately treat the effluent to a high enough level, and so the irrigation system was overused and overloaded, and then turned out to have some nitrogen coming through, whereupon DEP said, well, it obviously doesn't work. And you know, I personally prefer biofilters and lower using the land and the that we have. But I was not in a position to do anything about that at the time.
I'm remembering pieces of this now, and there was another issue, which was the spray would spray, but the growth wouldn't uptake very much of it, or enough of it to make it worthwhile.
Well, the problem was they didn't make the alleys wide enough.
Okay.
So when the spray went in 360 degrees, it hit the pine trees because the alley wasn't wide enough. So then it hit and it came down straight down the pine tree trunk. As, well, just think if you have tree, and you're spraying. So you had spray irrigation that wasn't evenly spread around. And it went through the sandy soil and on down.
I think that might be part of the issue is
Yes.
the selection of species. Because most of the work has been done with poplars.
Yeah.
And there are different types of poplars. There's some that have the taproot and there's some that have the other, the spreading roots. And I'm just saying that this is something that even if Site 7 is picked, it's a big piece of land. And part of it, only a small percentage of it, I think, would be used for the rapid infiltration. But if it was, some of it could be
Well, that's interesting.
done as a
Biologically.
poplar-based biological thing to see.
Yep.
Really, we might catch both phosphorus and nitrogen in that mix.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I know that the University of Pennsylvania, so it's a cold climate, you know, at College Park there, I think it's College. State,
It is.
State Park.
State Park.
State Park, right, State Park.
Okay, that would be
Has been doing
Pennsylvania
this
State.
since when I was first involved in Falmouth in the 70s.
Yeah.
So, and it's still going on. So
Yeah.
the thing
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
the trees might have been, there are a lot of things. Maybe they didn't know really how to approach this, although the information, I actually presented it to the town, the information on this, but I didn't stay involved later on as it was being done, so. But it's something else, I think it's
That's interesting.
another option to upgrading the plant in a way of just looking at this again. There's a lot of land out there
Right.
still.
Mhm.
And if we, outside of the watershed perhaps, even, I don't know. But
Interesting.
Yeah, and it uses these trace amounts at the very end of the process
Right.
in a useful way.
Yeah.
And so poplar trees, I didn't remember that particular species. When the original spray irrigation was done here, they didn't plant any trees at all. They just cleared
Just
an cleared an alleyway and
Okay,
started the
all right, well,
whirligigs.
that's, yeah,
And so, there wasn't enough thought put into that.
yeah, all right. So,
So, those are good suggestions, thank you.
Any further comments on Matt?
Should we, I don't know who would write a letter, but should we write a letter to Board of Selectmen or Mass DEP, Mass Highways
Right.
about the culvert there, the discharge,
Mhm.
the road runoff?
Oh, yeah.
If you
I
make
mean, we
that
all
as a
think it's a
motion,
great
I'll
idea, but we-
second it.
I move that we send a letter
Mhm.
to
Mass,
Mass
the
Highways, copy-
responsible entity.
Yeah, Mass
yeah,
Highways are
copy
really,
the selectmen.
Department of Transportation. Basically saying when they do their rebuilding in this part of the highway, address this problem.
Yeah,
Right, district, right.
and our legislators.
Sure.
And,
Okay, well, there's a motion.
I second it.
Conversation, discussion?
Who,
Okay.
who actually would write the letter?
Sia and Virginia will
Okay.
work on drafting it, and we will,
We
Okay.
The
we'll-
writing never stops,
we'll-
right?
We will bring it back for your editorial observations.
Please don't
Right.
do that. Just write the letter.
We're so good at writing by committee now.
just for the record, it wasn't University of Pennsylvania, it's Penn State
Thank you.
University.
Ah.
Actually, I think we're fortunate that GHD wasn't involved in that, but Nate Weeks' undergraduate degree, or maybe his master's degree, is in agricultural engineering. I don't think, I think he's excited about some of these things more so than
Good.
others, and I think, next time we have a chance,
Good.
we have to
Good.
sit down and say, what options do we have?
Good. All right, well, moved and seconded, further discussion? Okay, all in favor of sending this letter?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We will draft a letter and get it out to the legislators and the Mass Highway, or
And
Transportation, whatever they call
copy of the
themselves.
Board of Selectmen.
Copy to the selectmen. Okay, discussion of nitrogen groundwater attenuation issues. Win, I think you've handed something out here.
I handed out this a couple of weeks ago. I sent it out to everybody, and here's a copy of it. Does everybody have a
got this?
copy of it
Talking
today?
points for discussion of nitrogen attenuation.
I'll say a couple of words and maybe just go through it a minute. About 2 years ago, when I first started on this committee, I became aware that I didn't understand nitrogen attenuation in groundwater. And then I found that other people also didn't know very much about it. From time to time, it's come up in the things people have said to me. But it was in connection with Mike McGrath's presentation that I realized that there was enough different points about it that we might want to take another look at it. And I want to say right off the bat that the points I'm making will challenge SMAST's assumptions about nitrogen attenuation. I'm not at all challenging SMAST's assumptions about how much nitrogen is necessary to get out of the estuaries. That's a different question entirely. The question I'm approaching is the question whether SMAST is right about the amount of nitrogen attenuation in groundwater. And if they're not right, and if we could establish that they're not right about that, it might save us some money in the long run because it might change the way in which we take a look at where and when we try to attenuate nitrogen. And so I accumulated all of the information I have, and I'm not an expert. I'm not pretending to be an expert in this. I'm a learner in this, and so that people who are more expert than I am can tell me whether I'm wrong about things. I put down SMAST's assumptions. Does everyone, if I remember their report correctly, am I right about SMAST's assumptions that a typical home, they assume a typical home discharges nitrogen with a concentration of about 39 milligrams per liter? That's
about right.
Per year?
Right.
Per- yeah.
There's per liter.
Ultimately,
It's just
we
a
should
concentration.
run, this is our read of their assumptions.
That's exactly,
We
yes.
should check with them.
Exactly.
Do they agree that these are their assumptions?
Exactly, we should
Okay.
do that. That's one of the things that ought to be done. About 25% of, I've heard this from several people, that altogether in the Tidal V system, from the tank and the Tidal V system itself, you get about 25% of attenuation of nitrogen, and I think they assume nothing thereafter, or very slow attenuation thereafter. I think they assume, according to Virginia, they assume that ponds attenuate about 50% of the nitrogen. That's just a figure that they give.
I was told, I think I was told that by Tom Cambereri. So again, I would need to double check
Yes, yes.
that that's in fact correct.
I think that's just sort of a figure that they've given.
Yeah.
It would depend on have to depend on the size of the pond.
Well,
Otherwise, you could game the system. You could have 3 little tiny ponds in a row, and each one would take out 50%.
well,
I
maybe
mean,
that's,
that's reduction to absurdity.
We're dealing with reality.
we're dealing with reality. Yeah.
But ponds,
We'd have to put
are real-
nitrogen in.
Yeah.
yeah, the ponds would be really different in size.
Oh, sure. Would you speak up at the microphone?
Come
there?
here.
Was this
If
fine?
you look at the rainbow charts included in the report, I think it tells the percent they attribute to every water body. So there's different ones for different ponds, and I believe that goes.
Are there
probably-
different ones for
It's
different?
probably, an average of 50.
And who are you?
Okay.
I think,
Who are you?
sorry, I'm Paul Gobel with the town of Mashpee.
Okay, thank you. And anyway, we need to find out what they assume.
Paul is becoming an honorary member of this committee, since
thank
he's
you.
attending at least as well as some of our members.
And I think that groundwater progresses down gradient at different speeds at different times of year and under different circumstances, but an average of a foot a day seems to be what people seem to agree on. And this last one, I just tried to express my understanding of what they're saying about the total daily discharge of nitrogen can be reduced to the TMDL of nitrogen at the Sentinel station. If you reduce it by that, you will allow water quality in the estuary to improve enough for the estuary to recover given time. That's, I think, just a very, very general statement of what I understand they're saying. There's a lot of differences of opinion about how long it will take and so forth and so on.
Yep.
And so I just went, I tried to put together the information I had gathered in the form of challenging each one of the assumptions. Both George Heufelder and Mike McGrath do challenge the assumption that typical home discharges of nitrogen They think they're much higher than those assumed by SMAST. We're going to have some information about that, at least from the homes that we are testing now. We're going to have some information about that.
Water flow goes down, concentration goes up. I think that's one
Total
of the
flow is
assumptions.
going to matter too.
Total flow does matter. Total flow, average total flow is average nitrogen. Yes, that
With
plays
low-flow
into it.
toilets, I think that's why there is some discussion of what is the proper concentration of nitrogen coming out. But, you know, we deal with concentration because it's easier. Ultimately, you deal with mass.
Yes, exactly. But that's a grace note on this particular thing. George thinks in general that much more nitrogen comes out of houses than they assume. He's assuming that.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Okay.
think I've
And
been
so
through
so is Mike McGrath. Whatever the flows happen to be, whether they're high or low, that much more nitrogen comes out than is assumed. Secondly, I've read an article by Ivan Valiella and others written in 1998 with some care, and I listened to what Mike McGrath had to say, and both of them are saying that they think, although Ivan was very careful about expressing how certain he was about this, they think that nitrogen attenuates after it leaves the septic system considerably in the first couple of 100 yards, and it continues to attenuate after that. He assumes that that's the case, and the figures he gave were about 33%, 33%, 33%. But he said that depends on the soil, it depends on all sorts of things. It's not a fixed figure at all. But if that's true, that means a lot more attenuation than is assumed by than SMAST. And partly because of that, Mike McGrath said he believes that most of the nitrogen reaching the estuaries from septic systems comes from home within a few hundred feet of the estuary. I think because of that because of that attenuation that he assumes.
Okay, just before we go to the next page, it's interesting. I mean, if they say that it's much higher coming out, the concentration of nitrogen, and the attenuation is much greater, then the lower amount coming out with less attenuation may be about the same. I don't know. I mean, it's
But
just
then-
that,
but then
you
it
know,
becomes-
I don't know quantitatively, but it looks like there might be some, they may not be that far apart.
Yeah.
Well, that's the point, but then it means that you want to concentrate on the ones that are close to the estuaries.
Right.
The ones far away don't matter.
Which is what we happen to be doing.
Right.
Right,
Fine, yeah.
because the peninsulas are narrow enough that the houses are close to the estuary in
So if this
almost
is,
all
so if
cases.
this is right,
But north of Route 28, which is what we've always
Right.
talked about as being the upper watersheds, there's some really good questions that need to be pursued.
but to the extent that this is right, things like PRBs will turn out to have a much better effect on the TMDL, on
Or-
meeting the TMDL.
Or possibly lower if they're set back from the estuary with houses between them and the
Right.
estuary.
Right.
We have to think about that.
Right, you're right.
The location of PRBs may be a crucial thing. To speak to Ron's point, I was assuming that in saying that we weren't challenging the amount of nitrogen that they assumed was coming into the ponds, that I wasn't challenging this and saying if we could reduce that nitrogen coming into the pond. I was assuming that there was about the same, either, depending on which way you looked at it. And Virginia, you challenged the third assumption that the ponds, you think the ponds attenuate more than they're given credit for.
Well, if you just think about it practically, if you have houses upstream of a pond and they put nitrogen into the pond, and then the assumption is made that only 50% of that nitrogen is biologically absorbed in the pond, then the other 50% should show up at the southern end of the pond as the groundwater leaves the pond. But I haven't seen any data that really backs that up. So, but on the other hand, people haven't specifically gone out and said, okay, we're gonna double check what's the nitrogen concentration at the discharge side of the ponds. So it's sort of a long-term interest of mine, and I work on it when I have time.
I just, no, on this, when you say pond, you're talking about the estuaries.
No, actually, I'm talking about
Freshwater
freshwater ponds, inland ponds.
Right.
Yep.
Well, I don't know, Yeah, maybe.
I've heard Alison Leschen say that the ponds and various places that are nitrogen sinks, because of the extra nitrogen which has been coming down from the sky over the past half century, and because of the nitrogen which is coming from septic systems, that they may be overloaded in some cases.
Sure.
And we don't know.
Sure, and it partly just depends on the size of the pond. If you
Yeah.
have 10 houses in a small pond versus 10 houses in a big pond, you're going to have a different result.
Anyway, it's something we need to look at.
There are some reports on this in terms of loading for West Falmouth in particular. So those are, we should get those from that PALS
Good.
study, wherever that, I haven't seen it directly, but there are studies.
To which ponds?
To the pond, well, Wings Pond, Crocker Pond, others in West Falmouth, there are.
Yeah, very few houses around
You're
me.
talking about the PALS reports, or what was
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
That the county did.
Yeah.
Oh, that the county, I see.
Right, right.
Okay, yes, that's true.
And then the final point, I heard Ron making a good point, that we and SMAST apparently are really only interested in to meet the nitrogen standards of the Sentinel stations in the summertime. And we might do a little bit of fine tuning to ask, when does the nitrogen from a particular heavy load arrive at the estuary? Does it arrive in the wintertime, or does it arrive in the summertime mostly? It might fine tune some of the things that we do.
I think it's a bad assumption to assume you can go to the Sentinel station, sample it, if it meets it. When we could put a filter around the Sentinel station. I mean, that was
Yeah, wait.
we're putting moistures around one right now.
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, you know, it's like you have to take the entire weight of evidence.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the Sentinel station, the modeling, and some additional things.
I can just add a few, I think that I talked to John Ramsey about this as well, because he's also been looking into this. And as well as the SMAST assumption, and then my view on it is that it really is that it's depending on the estuary, okay, to an extent, but like Little Pond has a freshwater turnover rate, excluding the tidal exchange, of about once a month. Great Pond through the year from freshwater flows from groundwater, the streams coming in, and precipitation. So once a month, we have a volume of water, and the full volume of the pond goes out the inlet. So in the winter, when the ponds are dormant, there's very little biological activity. So the nitrates and phosphates and whatever else comes in through these sources from the sky and wherever, it ends up being like part of the salt mix, because it's not absorbent biologically. At least theoretically, that should be the case. We have to double check, look at it as more. But it makes sense. So therefore, that full 6-month load, let's say during the cold months, would flow out. And then in the spring, when things warm up, then that's when the problem. That's why they're talking about the summer months, is that then the biological activity starts. Phytoplankton blooms and crashes and low oxygen and odors and fish kill. Well, we have one fish kill, I guess, and things like that happen. So the notion then is that in addressing that, we can look at that management side of how to think about it from a systems approach. So that's basically what, and it seems that this is pretty much an understood phenomenon with the estuaries. So, and then the timing that you're mentioning, if you go by 1 foot per day, and we figure out that, a lot of it's going to end up getting in the ponds, especially from the near shore properties, in the winter, and then it'll flow out. So, but then we still have the summer, so it's not like we have to deal with that basically. And so I think that a lot of the approaches, anyway, just to be clear.
I think I think the committee is now starting to try to redo the SMAS model. Maybe it has to be done. But if we want to spend a lot of money and spend a lot of time and still have to fight regulatory assumptions, I think we're going to do it. We're going to have a real live experiment once we sewer a Little Pond and we see what happens. At that point in time, we have real numbers and we can go back and say, let's relook at the model. Some of these other things, to the extent that we have money, we should look at them. but it's not going to expedite the process and give us an answer any sooner.
Yeah, I think, but I think that Wynn points it out that we're not changing this. This is what SMAS is saying is happening. This is the SMAS
Well,
model.
let's let Wynn finish,
Yeah.
because he's got a whole
go ahead.
program laid out.
I mean, I have, there's other things you could say, but I put down two conclusions that I thought would make it worthwhile taking a look at. First of all, if Virginia's right, we don't need to pay attention to nitrogen entering groundwater above freshwater ponds. We need to pay far less attention than we thought about doing in later parts of the. We might even just say we don't need to do that at all.
Well, in essence, we
I
have
would
said
certainly
that.
not make that assumption
No,
until I have a
no,
lot of
absolutely,
data
absolutely
to
not.
prove it.
but,
Okay,
yeah.
so just to be really clear here, then.
Yeah,
This committee has put that area at the very end of the to-do list.
that's right. We have up to date, but it also, it has something to do with, well, I won't go into
Yeah.
that, but it has
Yeah.
something to do with it. If Mike McGrath is right, we should be concentrating on nitrogen entering groundwater from homes close to the estuary, as close as possible, with particular attention to finding local plumes and treating them. I don't know whether that's going to turn out to be a reasonable thing or not, but he's suggesting that. If Ron is right, we should be concentrating on nitrogen. I guess all I'm saying is that we should be looking at whether there are any changes in the way in which any differences in the way in which we would choose the places where we do particular, where we build anything or do anything, on the basis of knowing a little bit more about how nitrogen enters the groundwater and how much attenuation there is.
Matt?
Yes.
This is not a new debate,
No.
whether SMAS knows what it's doing or not. And it actually started down the Lower Cape. Orleans had put together a scientific committee to look at, I'll say a committee of citizens that were scientists, retired scientists, very well qualified. And they looked at the report, and they had a private company do an
I
analysis.
saw that.
And they had a lot of issues. What happened was there were enough towns clamoring on the Lower Cape about this. It's probably 2 or 3 years ago, that the county put together a
Peer review.
The peer review committee, yeah.
Right.
And they had some pretty highly qualified people from around the country who they invited here to do this peer review in a period of few days, 3 days. They might have been given the material earlier.
They were, I think
Oh,
they
yeah.
had it, and then they got together
And
here.
then- But they debated it, and they came out endorsing the SMAS model. You know,
Yeah.
they pretty much backed it up.
I-
And I'm just getting to what Jerry was saying. A
Mm.
lot of time and money was expensed in that process, and it got them nowhere. I don't know if maybe it probably wouldn't hurt to get your questions answered. But I'm just
yeah.
saying, if we're gonna challenge the SMAS report at this point.
I wanted-
I don't think that's what you're suggesting.
I'm
hope
not suggesting that.
Okay.
Because we've gone by that a long
Yeah.
time
We
ago.
did.
I think that the question I would like to ask is, to what extent did the survey of the SMAS model address this particular question of attenuation in groundwater? Did they address that? And what did they say about that? Did they answer any of the questions that we're answering? Or did they decide that
And the
SMAS,
answer is yes, they did.
they did?
They did.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And the report's online if you want to
I
read
listened-
yourself tonight.
I don't remember I was actually there when they gave
Okay.
the report, and I have a copy of the report. I didn't see any great discussion of this, except that the impression I got was that nobody knows the answers to these
I think
questions.
the thing was, we have an adequate report in more than that, well, it was adequate enough to go forward
yeah.
and not inadequate that we should stop.
Right.
Right.
I think that is, I'm not challenging that.
Yeah,
I'm not challenging that at all.
This high-level panel that spent time on this, they didn't conclude that every detail that SMAS relied on was 100% accurate, but they said they were close enough for the purposes of the study. whether it was 50% or 45% or 55%, those were the kind of gradations they were looking at. They weren't looking at, were you 50% or were you 10%?
Right.
So he said, but since most of their estimates were in that kind of a range of variability, they said it was a model you could rely on for what we're doing. And
Well,
we did.
How much of the model was and how much of the report is the TMDLs themselves, which none of us, and even Mike McGrath, no one is contesting that you have to remove a certain percentage because you know what the concentration is and you know what eelgrass like to see.
Right.
So it's not rocket science to know if you have twice as much, you've got to take half of it out. But where you can capture it upstream, that's a more subtle thing, which is what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
So what if you just circulated this 2-page document to all the people in your final paragraph and asked for their opinion?
If
For
we could
the
get
first pass,
Fine.
and go from there. Because this is so basic. This is like asking a country doctor and one patient to do, for us to do this, to do a study on how antibiotics are absorbed. I mean, the EPA should be doing this.
Well, that's right. We're
Or
not doing it.
one of these, remember the two groups, one at MBL and one at Hui,
Yeah.
who got our little letters of endorsement.
Yeah.
Either this has already been done, or it should be. I mean, it doesn't require magic to do it. It's just money and a certain amount of time.
Just money.
Just money.
No, I mean, it doesn't require creative breakthrough.
Right.
It doesn't require somebody to win the Nobel Prize or something.
Yeah.
You just go stick a bunch of probes in the ground and measure. And
Yeah, I think it's
Figure
more
it
than
out.
that.
Well,
There's
My-
a-
my
there's a
hunch is it's-
report
oh, yeah.
right here
Every day.
online.
my hunch is it's much more complicated, and it isn't just stick some probes in. I do want to be really cautionary about your assumption of what SMAST assumes, and you need to tell me exactly which paper you read, and then I'll ask Ivan if you have read it correctly.
Yes, I think that would be a
Okay,
good idea.
because I'm not sure of that. And so I would be, I think just so that the committee doesn't get embarrassed and you don't get embarrassed, that we need to do a little double checking before we make this into a big deal. I completely
Yeah.
agree with Matt that because of the questions in Orleans, the county did go to a considerable expense to hire people who were very knowledgeable to review the overall SMAS program, and they concluded that it was reasonably correct, as Eric said.
Would it be the thing to do to add their names to this list of
Whose
people?
names?
The names of the people who did that study.
I,
Names of the
Well,
high level people.
I would start with square one.
Yeah, okay.
You've made an assumption that you have correctly read and understood.
And I don't know that.
And you
Yes.
don't know that,
That's
and
right.
you gotta know that first.
Okay.
So,
So I have some work to do, or somebody has some work to do.
Well, you have some work to
Yeah.
do.
do we all agree that circulating this to this list of people is acceptable
Well, I
and
think
reasonable?
his step one was to deal with SMAST and see if his statement of their assumptions was an accurate one.
Yeah.
and give me exactly the paper that you read.
I can give, I'll
I can double check.
make a copy, I
All
have a
right.
copy of it online.
You could check with everybody you quoted to say,
There.
Yeah.
the same thing.
Exactly,
Did I
yes.
quote you actually?
Did I
Actually,
quote you
yes.
In what
accurately?
paper
Yes.
or whatever were you
Yes.
referring to?
There you go.
Because there are
So that-
subtleties sometimes.
That-
huh?
Right.
That's Ivan, Mike, Virginia, and Ron.
Right.
Who's
I-
Matt?
I wanted to bring this to the committee before I started sending out letters to people and talking about it, because I don't know anything.
Well, that's,
And so you've given me I need to do a little bit of more work, bring this back
Okay.
in a couple of weeks.
But you
if I-
could do it, especially if you delete alarmist paragraphs. Selectively, depending on which person you're sending it
we
to.
can help you.
I mean, you can,
Oh.
right? You can save a lot of time by sending it to all those people, but maybe not sending all of it to all the people. In other words, ask each one for their opinion of the part that they are likely to know about. It's just a thought.
Yeah, I could think about that.
Yeah.
The first question is to find out whether I have accurate information in number one, and whether I could ask each of the people whether I'm quoting them correctly. starting with Ivan, making sure that I'm quoting him correctly. And then go from there. If I've quoted them correctly, then I want to go back and read that report and see how much they actually said about attenuation in that report, whether they actually studied that question or whether they just said, well, we don't know attenuation from nothing, and nobody knows attenuation.
I don't think anybody said that exactly.
Not quite. It's a more complicated question than,
Everything is enormously more complicated as we're discovering here.
yeah.
Like someone said it to me, all you have to do is Google nitrogen attenuation,
Yeah.
which is what I did. The first thing that came up was a report prepared for DEP, April 2007. It's in nitrogen attenuation in wetlands, a literature review, bibliography with abstracts and annotations.
That was on wetlands. Okay, yeah. That's
Well,
It was
That's
case
because
specific, I
forests-
think.
it
that's been
does-
studied. That's been studied
it does
considerably.
forests,
Yes.
it does,
Yeah.
Okay, so you can ask a different question
Rivers.
and you'll get some more answers.
there's a lot to it, so you
Yeah.
might want to
Yeah.
start with what DEP knows.
Yeah. I talked with Allison about that. She said that wetlands attenuation, a short version of what Allison said is that wetlands may have been overloaded on the Cape. to a
But it's
great
more,
extent.
this research is forested watersheds,
right,
emerging
okay.
scrub, riparian zones, streams, rivers, lakes, estuaries,
And groundwater?
salt marshes, mixed-use watersheds,
And groundwater?
constructed wetlands.
Yeah, but McGrath is specifically talking about non-wetlands.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's talking about groundwater. He's
Right.
not talking about attenuation into groundwater. He's talking about attenuation in groundwater.
Okay, do we have
Yeah,
any
okay.
further discussion on this topic? Any others, reports of committee members or staff to bring forward?
You're going to talk about the sea level rise conference, or just remind
Yeah,
people?
That's the
Next.
next,
Oh,
the
okay.
next thing on the agenda.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, there is a
Yeah.
conference
That's-
sponsored by Webner on the 13th and the 14th of this month in Hyannis. We were invited to send a representative to talk about our aquaculture experiment, and Ron has agreed to go and do that. Jerry's going to go and
Right.
talk a little bit about the
PRB
and
and
what's-
inlet widening specifically.
Inlet widening.
And
And everyone else on the committee obviously is invited to go. You just go to the Webner website and sign up. Sia is going to be there for part of the time.
Sia and I have been invited to prepare and Sia has said that I should do it because she doesn't have the time, prepare a board if we wanted to talk about
Eco-toilets.
eco-toilets in that time of when they're going to have boards there to show and tell.
Okay, they
In
were
the evening.
charging exhibitors money. I don't know if you count it as an exhibitor.
No.
No, good.
No, this is not.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a question for Jerry. Has nitrogen reduction credit been assigned to inlet widening things? I mean, can we get credit for the?
We hope to be able to show that by inlet widening, we reduce the amount of nitrogen coming from how many homes?
375, right?
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's a part of it's a demonstration research
Yep.
effort. that
Right,
we-
and
Right.
monitoring.
It's the monitoring.
Yeah.
Year
yeah.
before, 3 years after the
Right.
widening.
Right, we've got the models that show it. We want to
Right.
see the.
They want it actual in the estuary.
Right.
Yeah, there's
Sure.
two other things. One is that John Brawley and folks from the county and Boston University have had a research proposal approved by a Woods Hole Sea Grant to monitor the oyster population or the oyster reef that's been created in Salt Pond. So they've gotten the funding basically to go out and see what the impacts are on the Salt Pond water quality from that, which is sort of along the lines of what they're doing in Wellfleet, except they went to a lot of effort in Wellfleet and we happened to get lucky and suddenly, for whatever reason, have a pond full of millions of oysters that are, pretty good size.
Wow.
It's a closed fishing area, shell fishing area, so it means that they're more or less protected by that, so that they can continue to do what they do in there. But they have a program, they're gonna look at the genetics, where they come from, and look at the changes in water quality. I assume they're now searching for the baseline data that was before they appeared. I think they have that. I don't have the details on that. But anyway, that is something that, and also was brought to the attention of the Conservation Commission, so that, and recommended that they definitely get in touch with them just to do it, because it's basically sampling a few animals and water quality. The other thing is that on another side is that the Woodsell Oceanographic proposal that Matt Charette had asked us for a letter of endorsement wasn't supported for funding, so
No.
that one won't be going ahead. And that was a project to look at nitrogen attenuation mechanisms at the interface of salt and fresh water. So that is, under that program, is not going ahead, but they will probably be sending it elsewhere, so we
We
may
should
still.
send it to the EPA and have them pay them to do this.
Yeah.
So, anyway, but this is, those are 2 points.
The sea level, I think for people generally interested in sea level rise, that's probably the bulk of this conference. And if you don't know why water seeks its own level, and Louisiana is going to have a higher flooding than we are, then go to that conference, and it's a very simple answer.
I tell you what, I will pass around the agenda of the conference so you can all see.
My feeling was that this was not as much about sea level rise as it was about other things.
The agenda will be in front of you in 1 minute, and in
Yeah.
front of you too,
Yeah.
so we can all
Okay.
figure it out by ourselves.
I had the agenda in front of me. I didn't. This is the
There's a-
13th and the 14th.
Yeah,
13th
there's a
and 14th.
plenary session. There's 3 plenary sessions on the first day. One of the whole plenary sessions is about climate change, sea level rise. Some
Right,
really
right.
good people are talking.
Right, yeah.
Concurrently, there are other sessions about planning and the Cape Cod Commission talking
Right,
about its
right.
MVP and that stuff. And then
It's about more than sea level rises.
I know, but it
there's
is
a
good.
really good
Yeah.
session on
Yeah.
sea
Yeah,
level
yeah,
rise.
thanks for, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that I'm particularly enthusiastic about hearing.
Yeah.
All right, any other reports of committee members? Okay, we have number 8, correspondence from Steve Rafferty, which is, unfortunately for us, he's not going to he's asked not to be reappointed to the committee here. His work is escalating, and as you see, he's not here tonight, and he feels like he wouldn't be able to give us the time and that we need from him. So I'm sorry to hear it, but
That's too bad.
When does that become effective?
June 30th,
Oh.
this month, end of this month.
No, that's a big.
So we've asked this,
Yeah.
the selectman knew this, he sent them a letter a couple of weeks ago, and presumably, we mentioned this morning that they ought to put it on their list of things to do, to reappoint, or
Right.
appoint somebody new,
Okay.
so I'm sure they will.
Right.
But it's too bad, because he added a lot.
Yeah, no, he's right in the trenches, so to speak.
Yeah.
A lot, every day.
Yeah.
I was amazed that he was able to put in the time that he could, even over these years. Many
Yes.
years now, right? 4 years?
4 years.
4
And
years.
he was on the
Yeah.
review committee too,
Yeah, that's right.
So,
Yeah.
and the Board of Health at the same time.
Right.
so.
Right. I think it would be nice if we circulated a card of thanks to him. Just-
Okay, we have one more meeting before June 30th?
Yeah, I don't know whether he'll be at the next meeting, but
Right.
I'll get a card that just thanks him, because he certainly has been a really positive
Yeah.
contributor to all our discussions.
A thank you letter, maybe? Oh, just a card?
If it's a letter, somebody has to write it. If it's a card, it's done. And all you do is sign it.
If it's a letter, the crowd will want to edit it. We're not doing that.
He could bring cookies if he's going to be at the meeting. He
Oh.
likes cookies too.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
true.
yes, if the next meeting is his last meeting,
Okay.
Yeah.
let's make something out of it.
Let's make
Yeah.
something out of it.
Okay.
Just to make sure he's going to be here.
All right,
Need to use cookies for him.
okay.
All right, review and vote on the minutes of the prior meeting, all of which were circulated in a timely fashion. Everybody's
Yep.
had the opportunity to look at them, and any additions or corrections?
I move that they be accepted as is.
I second that.
Moved and seconded to accept the minutes as circulated. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Right, we have it. At the remarkable hour of 5 minutes to 9, I think we're in line for a adjournment motion, which Matt will be happy to make.
Actually, I want to bring one thing up.
Oh.
I'd like to, at some point, early in the year, get checkerboarding on the agenda to discuss and to agree on language and to formally submit it.
You're quite right. There's a few things that are coming up in the next 3 months, and different members have brought it up and expressed sort of urgency, which I think we all share, and that includes that checkerboarding, the Equa toilet installation issue, as far as being able to not sign up for sewer if and when there's a sewer. A flow neutral bylaw, if we want to get a 0% loan, we have to put that together. And the betterment issue, we don't set betterments, but we can at least have a conversation about what's appropriate and what provisions in state law we might ask to change to make it easier for people to pay the betterments and to make them fairer and lower. So those things are on our agenda for the next 3 months. So summer it will not be off.
No, it won't.
Summer
Well,
will
if that's
be.
the case, I move adjournment.
I hear a second?
You don't need to know on that betterments thing. If we have ideas for subtopics within that, you don't need to know that ahead of time, right?
No. I mean, the subject will be an all-night
I
affair.
mean, for instance, the idea of sewer districts.
I think it'll all be part of that same
Yeah, yeah,
conversation.
fine.
Yep, no, it makes perfect sense to bring everything in. I need a second on that adjournment motion.
Oh, second.
Okay, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.